This podcast was recorded at the Wyoming Arts Summit, held October 19th and 20th, 2007 at the Casper Event Center. The event was produced by the Wyoming Arts Council, a division of Wyoming's Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources. Patrick Overton serves as director of the Front Porch Institute in Astoria, Oregon. The institute is dedicated to creating resources for community arts and community cultural development. Patrick is the recipient of the 1997 Missouri Arts Award, recognizing his creative and outstanding service that has made an important and lasting contribution to the arts in Missouri. In addition, in 1997, the Missouri House of Representatives passed a special resolution honoring his work in Missouri.
I want to talk to you about a couple things. Now, the title of the speech, actually you got half the title. I chose not to put the whole title down. The half the title that you have is Creativity, Citizen Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development. Because what I said this morning, and I'll repeat, is that I think increasingly what we have to do is find our way involved in the community conversations that are already happening. And we tend not to be invited because people don't think of us as players, and or we don't think we should be there. So part of the purpose of the discussion is to look at, when we look at creative communities, what does that mean? And when you look at creativity in general, the concept of creativity, to bring something new into existence, or to take something that already exists and in the process of rethinking it, reframing it, transforming it, those are critical pieces of what we have to offer. Now, I will tell you up front that I have sort of had an ongoing discourse, and to some degree maybe some discord with some people in my field, because I think we need to be very careful in the arts. I think we need to be very careful that we do not ever think of the arts as a means to an end. I don't care whether it is economic development, community development, creativity, or anything else. I decided to go back and get a PhD. And I went back to get a PhD to figure out why nonprofits were so dysfunctional. We're the best and most important community resource, and so many times we've taken on the structure and the format of entities that really, about the time we were taking on their structure, they shifted, and for-profit corporate America is way ahead of us in so many ways, and I think we need to translate. The smaller the community, the more I think we need to be inventive. I'm increasingly telling small communities and organizations, I'm not sure you need to get a nonprofit designation. I think you can umbrella and partnership and collaborate with somebody else. The key is recognizing what it is that we have to offer, what it is that we contribute to the community. Now I'm going to give you the first line of the title to my speech that didn't get printed because I didn't give it to him. It's called Engaging the Democracy of Civil Discourse. And we talked about it this morning in all kinds of different ways. But if you ask me what is the most critical indirect benefit of the arts, meaning something that happens when art happens, when we do what we're supposed to be doing, what happens is you alter the individual sense. We know that the individual sense changes. The ability to feel positive, to be willing to share, to find your own voice, to discipline that voice. In creativity, there's what we call primary and secondary process. We talk about how the act of the aha then must be coupled with the sweat equity of taking the line and putting it into the kind of structure or frame or meter or rhyme that we need to have, or in theater, the script. That primary process is critical, but so is the discipline, the dynamic of learning the rigor of the craft. And if there is anything I am most concerned about, is the loss of the craft in our country. When we don't teach our young people to understand and value the arts. We are losing their ability to hone their skills in the discipline and the craft. And we know that increasingly one of the great contributions the arts make is what I now call the theater ensemble leadership model. When I go into a community and deal with leader development, I use the theater ensemble concept. I look at left brain and right brain function. I look at tech. And I'm a director, and if I didn't have a good technical director, if I didn't have good light, boy, don't ever mess with lighting, people. If you haven't figured that out, don't ever mess with lighting, people. Sound you can overcome because you can talk really loud. But bad lighting, all they got to do is, I mean, it's amazing what can happen. Just a little side, that's a freebie. I need technical help to do a production, and then I need actors. But I start with a script. I start with the aha and the discipline and the craft and the honing, and it all goes together. And in theater, in my experience in community theater in particular, is that when it all goes together, everybody has their piece and their part. And what has to happen is that you find the confluence of all of that individualness together. So the wonderful part about theater is that it takes all the individual stuff, all the individual expression and discovery, and then puts it into that community intersection where what comes out is a different voice. It's a community voice. It's a story voice. And those two things together, to me, become absolutely essential. I was 48 before I found out my great-great-grandmother was a full-blooded Cherokee. That's how much shame existed in my family over that. We're talking about cultural genocide. We're talking about whole nations of people who we tried to stop their expression. See, to them, their spirituality and their dress and their rituals they don't have words like art. That's just who they are and and we tried to stop that. We tried to change that. And what we need to do is to understand that all of our communities are at risk in not knowing our stories and not finding art integrated that way. I referenced this morning the concept of how we relate to the environment. I believe we are so central. That 20 years ago when I was doing my work, I thought it was about individuals, and then I thought it was about communities, and then I thought it was about community development, then I discovered it was about economic development, and now I'm fully aware that what we do directly impacts the physical environment in which we live, which is what we are doing contributes. And I believe the contribution we're making is because of the poetry of place and the negative discourse that is going on in our communities. Now, I am a person of hope. But I have to tell you, in the last 9 years of being in communities, the increased lack of civil discourse is astounding and frightening. The anger, the fear, the challenge, the struggle to learn how to communicate with each other is overwhelming. I cannot believe of anything more important, and you are the first conference that I have been asked to speak at since I have come to this realization. So I'm declaring my new work in my new research. I'm convinced we have to look at how those of us in the arts, in what we do, in what we invite in individual and community discourse, contribute to a positive social footprint that is the only offset that is going to matter for what we are doing with the carbon footprint. The more we can learn to discuss and disagree, the more we're going to be able to do something creatively. Creativity is a process of addressing stress. Almost always. Picasso said, creativity must first begin with an act of destruction by necessity, because the very act of putting paint on a canvas is destroying the empty canvas. It's transforming. We have to be about the business of figuring out how we can disagree, inform, and learn. I believe that the arts contribute through the pleasure of the experience to the human spirit. That is what I call the ascendant value of art. From the depth of my soul, I also believe that art may be the only authentic voice that is willing to point a finger at something we don't like, something we don't want to acknowledge. And it says, I'm here. You can't ignore me. And until we are willing and understand the benefit of the ascendant and descendant contribution the arts make, we can't create the social footprint we need.
This podcast was produced by Wyoming's Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources. Music by Robert Bluestone. No portion of it may be used without permission by contacting the Public Information Office at 307-777-7014. Learn more about Wyoming State Parks and Cultural Resources by logging on to artsparkshistory.com.